Recording in progress. Right. Hello. Hi, Lucy. And hello, everyone.
Hi.
Happy Eid and welcome to People of Interest. We have a special arrangement today where on this celebration of, what is it, World Press Freedom Day and Mama Samia
Yep.
address in Arusha. There's quite a bit going on. It's a public holiday, obviously, religious festival, but we're going to be discussing press freedom, and we're going to try engage with a couple of journalists, people doing the work on the ground to get their perspective of the theme of the year. And Lucy, what's the theme for this year's press freedom?
The theme for this year is journalism under siege.
Under siege, yeah, it's quite
a mouthful. I'm still waiting for somebody to come break it down for me. So
yeah, no, I'm excited for that because I'm actually seeing our first guest. Let me try. Because I was like looking at the previous ones, making journalism better, but journalism under siege sounds, I don't know, sounds very ominous. And I wanted to get your input on this. So I was looking like, what exactly do they mean? And I got this article here from the Daily Maverick. So it says, the 2022 theme for the day is journalism under digital siege. That's the one, journalism under digital siege. The theme is intended to highlight the multiple ways in which surveillance and digitally mediated attacks endanger journalists and journalism, according to the United Nations. The latest United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, World Trends Report insights discussing the paper. So surveillance can expose information gathered by journalists, including from whistleblowers, and violates the principles of source protection, which is universally considered a prerequisite for freedom of the media and is enshrined in UN resolutions. So I suppose that's where they're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who was the guy that you wanted us to speak with? I forgot his name. That we'll probably be speaking with a bit later on.
Who is?
Well, the Nigerian.
Oh, his name is Mr. Segun Ojumo.
All right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he has been unable to join us because of the time difference, and he has prior work commitments.
Right.
But hopefully he'll be able to join us a bit later. He is a broadcast journalist. He's had almost a decade of experience in this industry. Continents, actually, not just Africa, not just Nigeria. He's worked in the United Nations General Assembly. He's covered, I think, Asia, if I remember correctly. Before that, of course, he also served as a public relations officer in the public sector. And currently, he covers politics and foreign affairs, and he is the head of news at Roots Television, which is an online. So their goal, basically, their dedication is just telling human angle stories. Nice. So because of the time difference and the work commitments and so forth, he will only be joining us, hopefully, for our afternoon session.
So what is the time difference between here and Nigeria? It is 2 hours.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, they're 2 hours behind us, so he's on his way to work right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, while we're waiting for the first guest to join us, I wanted to get your take as a sub-editor at MCL Officials. And look, I'm representing the Citizen. Come on, I came prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I got my whole regalia on. But what's your impression on that theme of unprotected sources? Essentially governmental or censorship institutions reading journalists' internal communications, finding out where the information comes from. Is that as prevalent, do you think, for it to be considered a whole theme of the year?
I think to an extent it very much is. Technology, the digital landscape, it has, in a way, it has, yes, opened doors. It has opened paths for us. It has presented a world we never initially imagined. But then the con to that is it has really affected privacy.
Right.
It has affected security, so to speak. As a journalist, sensitive topics, sensitive issues require you, like they say, to protect your sources, to it builds that kind of integrity that a journalist should have, that in as much as I am putting out a story that is fully credited, it's fully vetted, my sources are vetted, it's factual and all of that. But with digital now coming in the way of potentially exposing my sources, it really infringes on my integrity as a journalist, my integrity and my ability to be able to protect them. So it's quite a packed film.
Right. And,
like I said, I need someone to really, really break it down.
Here we go.
I kind of understand it in my head, but then I'm still struggling to find the right words to put it out in a way that somebody could actually understand. So in as much as I'm trying.
Yeah, no, just guess who's joining us now?
Yay, awesome.
Yeah, so we have the great Jenerali Ulimwengu himself. Thank you for taking time out to join us. I'm not sure if you can hear us.
Looks like you're still connecting.
Yeah, it's still connecting. But yeah, so this is one of our first few guests for the day, in keeping with the theme of, I think
I'm actually quite interested to hear what he has to say.
Yeah,
He's been in this.
So the theme for the year is journalism under digital siege.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were trying to sort of ascertain what that might mean. And so here, for instance, the Daily Maverick, they came up with an article that says the theme is intended to highlight the multiple ways in which surveillance and digitally mediated attacks endanger journalists and journalism, according to the UN. So what's your experience? And do you think this is a necessary issue to raise awareness of journalism being under digital siege?
Yeah, the digital dimension to journalism is of course important.
Right.
There are many more ways that can be utilized by people who are inimical to journalism, forces that are opposed to free journalism, to free press, to do surveillance on what journalists do, and other people generally, not only journalists, but other people generally. Things like state-sponsored surveillance, tracking what everybody is doing, trying to know what people are saying, communicating with each other, and so on and so forth. Although at the same time, the digital dimension also gives journalists some leeway in terms of searching for information, accessing information, being able to communicate. So many digital platforms offer. At the same time, they do offer surveillance possibilities for those who are inimical or who are against the free press. The journalists also can access those platforms, those possibilities to search for information, to communicate this information. So it's a double-edged sword in a way, in that on the one hand, it gives you all the possibilities, the new possibilities that digital platforms and other areas can offer to journalists. But at the same time, they do give a lot of leeway to those who are opposed to the free press, to free journalism. So how do you navigate this kind of space? You play it by the ear, I suppose. You look at what you have as possibilities. You look at what your opponents have as possibilities as well. That is to say, those people who may not want to allow for greater freedom in press and media generally. And find out what you can do. First, you have to be
Okay, Lucy, did you get that?
Yeah, I did. But I think before we've gotten a little bit far. I think based on Jenerali's experience and the years he's been in the industry, it would be quite helpful for him to actually just like take a walk back and like take us through how journalism has worked. Before that, in terms of the integrity, the kind of content that is put out, the kind of sources that they use, and and now looking at the way the digital world is transforming journalism, issues like citizen journalism and so forth. How does that play into the whole integrity of the journalism field?
Sorry, I can't hear that properly. I didn't hear
Okay,
that.
well, she was saying that you covered like a lot of bases very quickly. So we wanted to like backtrack a bit, and if you could walk us through your own personal experience, how journalism actually operates on the ground, and what are the systems in place to sort of facilitate the duty of a journalist.
I cannot. You guys out there have this new experience of digital dimension of journalism. So we didn't have that. We were basically the newspaper, radio, and television journalists yesterday.
Right.
It's a sea change from that situation to what you have right now. You have to consider that I started journalism some 15 years ago, and then what we had was it's like really comparing a sports star to an old tractor. It's completely different. What you have as an experience today, if you're practicing journalism, is very different from what we had as young women in those days. And as you can see, now we have so many things that we didn't have at the time. Platforms, online platforms, and so on and so forth. So it's a very different kind of world that we're living in today. And yet the challenges are still the same. Basically, they are still the same. There's a struggle between the quest for transparency, for things to be played out in the open, in a more loyal, in an honest manner. And the other, but the counterquest, which is to suppress any revelation of what is happening in transparency. So, because usually this is done by the state and instruments of state, but sometimes it can also be done by commercial interests, big finance and people who live money in the world may not be very friendly. Want to explore exactly what is happening behind the facade that is given to the public. So there is always a tug of war between those who want to do more exposure, to show what is happening to the news, and make their informed choices, whether it be in the electoral processes or in decisions to access goods and services. It's always the tug of war between those who want to expose what is happening and those who want to keep it under wraps.
Do you think here in Tanzania that our mechanisms for the implementation of protected speech, do you think they are sufficient enough going forward, or at least in your history?
Can you come again?
Do you think our mechanisms in this country are sufficient enough to protect free speech, or do you think those?
Absolutely not. On the contrary, everything seems to have been done in this country to make sure that there is no free speech. It is a far cry from even trying to promote free speech. What so inimical to free journalism, and they want to keep everything under wraps. Hence, the frequent interventions by the ministry responsible for information to ban or interdict or fine or otherwise punish, close down, or suspend, and so on and so forth. There is more in the way, by the way of intimidating journalists into not their work, rather than trying to help or assist or nurture or improve the local journalists and the space they work in. No, in this country, what you see is the desire by those in power, the authorities, to make sure that nothing comes out into the public that is not sanctioned by the authorities, and that is definitely fatal to any responsible journalism that you might want to have in any country.
Right. Okay. Lisi? You get all that?
Here and there. I was actually typing. There are parts that I was missing.
All right.
But I think that may have been on me because I just noticed a message. My network, something is unstable.
Yeah, I got the same. So
Yeah.
so what would you suggest the general public in celebration of World Press Freedom Day? What would you suggest the general public do to exert their personal freedoms of expression?
The celebration of World Press Freedom Day is a very important landmark in the calendar because it speaks to the fundamental right to be informed and the right to be able to inform others as well. And this has a ramification that's important for everybody in society. It's not only for journalists. Journalists are just the instruments. Journalists are the instruments utilized or employed by every society to make sure that it keeps informed. It keeps being informed and informed correctly, honestly, loyally, and as accurately as possible. Now, that cannot be left to journalists alone. It cannot be left to people who are in media. It cannot be, definitely it cannot be left in the hands of those who own media outlets, because they are commercial people. They make their livelihoods out of that, and then they make money. Some of them are in cahoots authorities, and they collaborate in trying to impinge on the free journalism, but it's the duty and responsibility of the general public to militate and to demand that their sources of information be as free as possible. Without little hindrance, that journalists be allowed to do their work properly. And then you have to couple that with the fact that now almost everybody has become a journalist. There's so much citizen journalism going around that now you can no longer really set aside and say, these are journalists and become journalists, because everybody has become a journalist now. Everybody has the right and the possibility to collect, process, and share information that is journalism we are witnessing today. Everybody is a communicator, and communication is a human right. It's a very basic human right. I think after food and maybe oxygen, you have to think of how you communicate with the rest of the world, and that's the right everybody, every human being possesses. And it has to be protected because it's under attack in so many ways.
Yeah, I like that. It's almost like a motto: the collect, process, and share information. I think that's a nice, succinct way of, putting some responsibility on the general public because at the end of the day, whatever freedoms you do have, it is up to you to enforce them and to maintain them over the coming generations.
Yes, absolutely, because what journalism that is really to tell you what is happening, and I usually go back into it in time, space. Long before we had newspapers or radio or data, we had journalists in our villages, people who would see swarms of locusts coming in the direction of the village and found their locusts are coming. Or there is a flood, the landslide, or there is a marauding hyena, or there is a ferocious lion coming towards the village. These were journalists. They didn't have laptops, they didn't have smartphones, but they served as communicators to inform the general public of what was happening. It was important to their lives and livelihood. And those were in the same manner. Today, you don't have to have a press card to communicate, as long as you see what you see and you can verify that this has happened. And, of course, there are problems in this area as well in terms of implementation of the principle. And yet, the principle is the same, that you as a human being, right, and responsible to communicate with your fellow human beings, fellow members of society, about what you are seeing, you perceive as a danger. And maybe it's not always black and white, because what you see as a danger is completely or others. But at least it's put out into the general public, and it is discussed so that people can give their opinions about what they see, what you have balanced them to, and how they let them give their opinions about how they perceive what you have perceived. Let's have a conversation, and you can't have a conversation when the channels of communication have been trampled underground, that people don't want things to be out in their office.
Okay, so with digital journalism, reliance on citizen journalists is inevitable. So what factors should we emphasize on in verifying the credibility of a story or a source, especially in instances where a story has already gone viral?
One condition, one condition that will allow society to use the nefarious effects of digital journalism and even journalism is, as you may know, the problem is that with journalism, everybody becomes a journalist, everybody becomes a newsroom.
Yeah.
So there are very few gatekeepers, very little gatekeeping. So everybody becomes their own master, knowledge master. They can do anything they want. They can sometimes be really nefarious, because they can give out information which is false, give out statements which can be construed as hate speech, or molestation of minors, federal material that is sensitive to gender equity and justice and so on and so forth. So you need, at the same time as you have this kind of freedom and latitude that is given by digital journalism, make sure that, I don't know how you make sure, but try to ensure that you have a society and the community that is as well informed as possible, so that against the background of full information, people who are really knowledgeable about how things work, so that they can keep chaff from grain, so that they can keep falsehood from truth. If you have a society or a community that believes that dead people can be resurrected It happened maybe 2,000 years ago, but today, deaf people just don't fight. No pastor, no citizen journalist can convince that society that somebody died in Mwananchi and resurrected, resurrected yesterday. So it is arming society generally with knowledge, with capacity, the power to understand the phenomena and refuse certain inanities and stupidities like people rising from the dead and things like that. Now, it is a constant battle because you have more people that are being born, young children that are being born into society where the education system is so hardened, so you don't have enough classrooms, you don't have enough teachers, you don't have enough books, you don't have enough material for these young people to be as thinking individuals. So you have all different sorts of people who are being left into society who don't get proper education, who cannot be able to think, who cannot look at phenomena and say this is right, this is wrong. So this is the better ground for false information to thrive on. But if you have a society that is fully informed, you can't ever be fully informed completely, but at least as fully informed as people, as fully erudite as possible.
Right.
Knowing much as you can, and all the time wanting to learn. And if you're told something, go and check and cross-check and see whether what you're being told is true. Then you have a problem. If you don't have this kind of society, because everything that is being peddled by people who may have good intentions because they want to communicate, they have seen somebody die and he got resurrected before he believed, and then you want to communicate it to you, and that information, that misinformation will fall on different grounds. But once you clear that, once you cover the ground with proper information, with proper education, people can think, people can utilize their brains for that, then you hinder nefarious effect of any ground for it.
Okay, so we thank you first of all for your input, and we're gonna close it off soon quickly. But this is something that I have that's a curiosity of mine in particular. So we always talk about whichever country they're in, whichever country someone is in, they'll most likely complain about the lack of freedom of speech or lack of application of the concept of freedom of speech. Is there any country in Africa that you would regard, or a place, maybe even it's extended to the globe, that you would regard as a standard bearer in the right of freedom of speech, where they sort of actually enforce those laws, or at least give a nod and a wink to those laws, as opposed to overt government censorship?
It's a question of relative strength and weaknesses.
Right.
Tanzania will be somewhere very close to the bottom of the ratings.
Right.
Definitely, Tanzania is worse off than Kenya, for instance. But it's comparative because I think it's relative because Kenya also they have their issues. Kenya may be worse off than Botswana, in my estimation. And both of these countries may be worse off than Senegal. In that sense, Senegal may be more advanced than the other countries that have been talking about. So we all have our problems. As I said a couple of minutes earlier, it's relative.
Right.
Because the freedom of expression and information and press and so on and so forth cannot be divorced from other freedoms, like freedom from hunger, for instance, freedom is and to the extent that you have liberated your society from those other deprivations, deprivation in terms of food and nutrition, deprivation in terms of education, in terms of health and medical care, and so on and so forth. You cannot, development and human progress cannot be compartmentalized. You cannot be well advanced in information when you are backward in education,
Right.
or in food and nutrition, or in social justice, or in gender equity. All these things march hand in hand. So that is why, if you look at the indices that have been given from time to time within this year, you'll find that the Scandinavian countries are way ahead of almost everybody. It is not accidental. That's the way that's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. You have development and progress in one area. It has to match in tandem with other areas of the progress that is being made elsewhere in society. So we are backward. We have to accept that Africa is generally backward. It's a word generally. Africa, Asia, Latin America, we are backward. But there are countries even in the economic north which are badly off in terms of freedom of information.
Yeah.
So it's a relative thing.
Yeah.
You have to compare and contrast all the time.
And even in a country like the United States, where every other word is First Amendment, you get cases like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, and I'm not sure if you've been following Stephen Donziger. That's another big case. He successfully sued Chevron, the big oil company, in connection with pollution in Ecuador. And Chevron literally prosecuted him. It was the first corporate trial ever, where you were speaking earlier about how big financial interests are probably one of the biggest purveyors of this censorship, where they look to silence journalism, where you're risking, because I think Chevron had to pay off like $60 billion or something like that to Ecuador. But yeah, just for that bottom line, they made his life a living hell for the past 3-4 years.
That's absolutely true. Even in the United States, which is always preferred as the exemplar of democratic governance, it is not true, because we have seen that even in the United States, it's prone to anti-media, anti-press attacks, like we saw the arrival in the White House of Donald Trump with these alternative facts and so on and so forth. That was a warrior against press freedom.
Right.
And this is played out all the time. And I do not believe that the United States has got too much to offer us. But one thing is important. There are so many fronts on which people have to fight for their freedoms. And one of those fronts is the press freedom front. In the United States, there are cases, there are lawsuits that are brought to the courts of law defending press freedom. There are lawsuits brought to the courts of law attacking press freedom,
right,
against exposure for so many various reasons. So it is always relative, and nothing is linear in anything. Sometimes you get your highs, sometimes you get your lows, but you count where you have gained mileage, and you reckon with those areas where you still think you're lagging behind. So we have to be on the lookout all the time, in our countries especially, because it is much more nefarious, it's much more destructive to ourselves as societies, as nations, as individuals, in the third world, especially in Africa, we still have a mountain to climb when it comes to press freedom, because we have not only the government and the state authorities, but also the commercial interests, the big corporate interests that invest in our country's so-called investment, which I don't even accept as investment, is out-investment. If you come to pick out minerals and pick them outside the country, that is not investment, it's out-investment. Those are very powerful interests that you have to be worried about, because they do not brook any exposure of processes that they engage in, and processes which are very corruptive, because they buy the power to do the business from state officials. Sometimes all governments are corrupted, bribed, and so on and so forth. So it's not only the state organizations, it's not only the police that you have to deal with. Sometimes you have to deal with the corporate interests that have the corporate pursuits that they follow in your country. It's not an easy job. It calls upon the people who are involved in media to be always alert as to what is happening around them.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your input. It says here we have just over a minute left. Yeah, I think that certainly gave us a lot of insight and a lot of things to think about. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, Jenerali.
Yeah, unfortunately, the young ladies on the program are kind of speaking from a remove. They seem to be far away from the microphone.
Yeah, no, she was messaging me the questions, and then I was also asking you. Yeah, but she could hear everything.
And I could hear him. I could hear as well.
Okay, yeah, but enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Happy Eid.
Happy Eid, yeah, same to you.
Happy Eid. I think next time we should have him in the studio.
Yeah, next time we'll have you in the studio. Okay. Bye.
All
right, last 30 seconds. That was Jenerali Ulimwengu. Quite informative, don't you think?
Quite interesting. Quite interesting. I think we didn't do him justice.
Yeah, I know. But I just hope.
Yeah, digital journalism is like, we really need to up our game.
Literally.
We need to up our game on digital journalism because,
oh God, we have to upgrade to pro to get more than 40 minutes. Anyways, we'll be back a bit later for more.
Yeah. Yes, see you guys later.
Bye.